To the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Ms. Stokes, who is the president and CEO of the Middle Tennessee Urban League, and Mr. Bates, who is a education specialist with the Middle Tennessee Urban League. And of course, let me welcome the two of you back to this final segment of the show, Ms. Stokes. And looking over some of the things that you'd like to talk about, Ms. Stokes, let's have you to sort of start us off during this final segment by perhaps talking about some of the things that you wanted to make sure that you talked about once you got here. And we want to give you an opportunity. We've got about 10 minutes. And any idea, as well as you, Mr. Bates, anything that you wanted to make sure that you got out, we want to try to do it during this segment.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you again, Dr. Haney. And as we talked about the youth education component, New Lights Project Ready, I wanted to make sure that I spoke about an umbrella program that we're doing in partnership with the National Urban League, the affiliates across the state of Tennessee, in Pennsylvania, California, and Ohio. And that is a program called Equity and Excellence. And it's an advocacy model that is looking at education reform in particular, and how it may impact communities of color, specifically focused on, and this is particularly important in Tennessee, the move to Common Core state standards, and we will hear that terminology more and more. What that means is that Tennessee has increased the standards by which they assess our children to those standards of states like New Jersey, Connecticut, that have always been consistently high. And that is an opportunity for us, because we certainly want our young people to be competitive, but it also presents a challenge because our children, particularly children of color, have not always even assessed well at the standards where we are. So it focuses on Common Core standards, parental engagement, quality after and out of school services, and teacher quality, to mention the main four things that it focuses on. The one area where we have sort of taken a toehold is around mobilizing the community to be a safety net, an education safety net for our children. As we look at the data, particularly for students in MMPS, we find that our youth, meaning African American youth, are not faring well in those assessments, particularly language, arts, reading, and math. And there is a need, and will be a greater need, for us to provide the additional supports that are needed for our children to be successful as we move toward Common Core standards. So we have a new initiative that we have done in collaboration with some other thinkers about this, and it's called Educate Nashville. That's the overall initiative. We have a faith-based initiative, which everyone will hear more about, called Churches for Our Children's Education, called C-Force. And in that initiative, we have just started out with two things. The first is that we've asked churches who have an interest in participating to agree to work with us on an Education Sunday. And that's going to be June 24th, as close as we could get to Juneteenth without bumping into Father's Day. Good. And then on that Sunday, the theme for that Sunday is filling in the gap, specifically referencing the achievement gap of our children. And we'll talk about the educational data. We want parents to understand the urgency of helping our children to become proficient in the academic skills that they need to be successful. So that's the first piece, that Education Sunday. And then we have asked those churches to consider, that are already doing educational programs or that have an interest in doing educational programs, to connect with us. And we're not asking them to change what they're currently doing, but we are asking them to allow us to assess the efforts overall as a unit, so that we can determine the impact that we're having, the baseline for the kids, the impact that the program is having, and how we can move to more efficient and effective models for dealing with our kids' educational needs in the community. So it's really supplemental educational services. Our intent is to just make sure that our children have what they need academically to be successful, and to engage the community in that effort, because we know that it takes a village, and we know that for us we may have to rebuild some of that village in order to make it happen.
Good.
And you also spoke with me about the report that we released a couple of years ago, the State of Blacks in Middle Tennessee, and we got a lot of interest about that report 2 years ago. It mirrored what the National Urban League does of the State of Black America, in that it talked about issues that are specific to Middle Tennessee in the areas of economic empowerment, jobs and business and entrepreneurship, health, education, and housing. Those were the 4 areas that this report focuses on. It was the people who contributed are academicians from some of our universities, or individuals who have been working in the community for a number of years. And I welcome our viewers to access that report from our website. It is on our website, and it is the State of Blacks in Middle Tennessee, and you can get that at www.ulmt.org. It's a very interesting read. You know, we hope to be able to refresh that and do it again, and this is probably the year when we will start that. So by next year, this time, we'll have something
But
new.
it does cover most of the major areas that...
It covers jobs, it covers entrepreneurship, it covers housing, health, and education.
Education, very
yes.
good. Now, we've got about